This is the Marvel Masterworks vidcast, True Believers, where we cover all of the adventures in the Marvel Universe. From the wanderings of the Green Goliath, to the chaotic offices of the Daily Bugle, to the grim alleyways of Hell's Kitchen, and to the top of Avengers Tower. With your hosts, Adam and Chris.
Welcome to another episode of the Marvel Masterworks podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me this episode is relatively frequent collaborator, Chris Evans. Chris, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's always good to have you back on the show, on the various, on the network, let's say, because you've sort of bounced around on several shows. You've been on this show before, typically talking about, I think we did Moon Knight was your Marvel episode.
Yeah.
And fans are used to seeing you when you co-host with me talking Buffy. But obviously, being a Marvel episode, we're not talking about Buffy. But we are keeping it in the supernatural and vampire realm because we are talking Blade this episode. Specifically, we're going to look back at the 1998 movie, I believe it is. It was 98. And then that's the first half of the show. And then the second half of the show, we're going to review and discuss the brand new Blade comic book. So that's on the agenda today. Of course, we have no update on the in development, close to filming Blade movie starring Mahershala Ali because there are 2 strikes going on in Hollywood. So even if they wanted to film tomorrow, they can't. So there's no update on that movie as of yet. I believe the last time that we heard anything before the strikes, it was undergoing a rewrite, if I remember correctly.
There was the rewrite and they cast Mia Goth.
Right, that's correct. Yeah. So things were happening, and I assume that once the strikes are over, those things will resume, and hopefully this film will finally get rolling in front of the cameras. But when that happens, we'll discuss it here, but it hasn't happened yet, so we can't talk about it. But Chris, just a little bit of sort of background for both of us. Where did you start in terms of with the character of Blade?
So I hadn't heard of the character until the movie, and then I remember when the movie came out, I wasn't aware that he was even a comic book character. So it was kind of just, it's a vampire movie. That I'm in for that. And then I remember watching it at home because I didn't get to see it in theaters. I saw it at home. And the Marvel logo flashed. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. And that was my introduction to the character. And after that, I got much more into him and I was curious about it.
Right. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. The only difference, I think, is that I watched Spider-Man, the animated series.
Oh, that's right. He was in that. I always forget he was.
He wasn't that, but
I always forget.
I forgot that he was in that. So
Morbius is in that too. I think that is
Morbius,
the Blade episode.
I remember Morbius from the cartoon,
but
I didn't remember Blade. And even though now I remember that he was in it.
Yeah, I've rewatched those since.
Yeah. So I remember that he was in it. But back when the movie had surfaced, I had not remembered that, hey, this character was in Spider-Man animated series. So I was technically in the same boat as you, whereas it's a vampire movie. All right, cool. I don't know that the Marvel logo has that. It's not the same Marvel logo we're used to today. I think it just said Marvel Comics or in association with Marvel or something along those lines.
I think it even says Marvel. I think it was just a red banner that said Marvel.
Okay, interesting.
I think.
I don't recall. I think it was. I remember seeing it written like in the opening credits where it says in association, but I don't think it was like some flashy logo that would instantly clue you in. Oh, hey, it's It's a comic book movie. So I was definitely in the same boat of, oh, all right, cool. It's a vampire movie. And I too am pretty sure that I saw it at home and not at the theater. So we're mostly in the same boat there. What I'm struck by in terms of this movie and what I think really works is they give you the origin story without taking half an hour to 45 minutes of the movie telling you his origin story. We see at the beginning, his mom giving birth and then dying, and then cut to present day, and Blade is, first time we see Blade is that blood, the blood shower kind of fight. I think is there an official technical name for that scene? Like, BVS has the Martha Rescue.
I think it's called the bloodbath or the blood rave, something like that.
That blood rave, I think, is correct.
I just think it's cool.
That sounds familiar. But that's the first time we see Blade, and it's like, and then of course we get exposition from, I think, Whistler, that kind of fills us in. But I like that it's so you get the origin, but it's not, like I said, and I love origin movies. So had they given me, a 20-minute, half hour, show me the origin, I would have probably been fine with it. But the fact that they didn't, and I was just as easily clued into who and what the character is I think a testament to just how well it was done.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think also, though, Blade doesn't really require a long origin, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's not a character where we need to see how he became who he is, because you could do it in literally like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
He's born, his mom dies, you get the picture.
Yeah, he's already a half vampire from the get-go, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's explained later on through, like you said, exposition, and even we get a little bit more of it toward the end of the film. I think that covers it.
Yeah, the only thing, that they could have shown was sort of the bit about as a kid, where he is sort of struggling with the thirst and the powers, and that's the only other thing they could show.
Which I don't know if I want to see.
Yeah,
that's just me, though.
Yeah, where's that going to get you, really? Like, how does that contribute to the overall story of the movie? It really doesn't.
A kid tearing people apart, I don't think it gets sympathetic for that one.
Yeah, right. So I like the way it was handled. Also, I think starting off with the rave scene, what an introduction to the character. Just like everything about that scene, from like obviously the goriness of it all, but then in terms of Blade, like the reveal, the way the camera pans and all that, and then just his attitude, his like demeanor, and then just him kicking ass is impressive. And I think Wesley Snipes sold that perfectly. So I was blown away, and I was hooked right from the get-go. And what I will say, the one thing what I found about this movie, there were minimal, I would say, visual effects, like CGI. For the most part, I think they work, given the time period that we're talking about. Like, the vampires, when they get killed and, they dissolve and explode or whatever, however you want to put it, that all looks good. There's only small instances where I had problems with the VFX, but we can get into it, later. But in that initial scene, I think everything looked really well. So what was your take on Blade's intro?
I don't think there's a better way to introduce him than that.
Yeah.
That whole scene is it's magic. from the opening of it when you see Tracy Lord, I forget her character's name, with that guy, and you're basically the guy. That is our point of view. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We're just along for the ride. And then you get in the club, and it was just a cool visual to see all these people going nuts, essentially. And you also, something nobody talks about is this opening scene introduces you to all the main vampires that you need to remember.
Yeah.
Because you see Deacon Frost, you see the blonde vampire, who I don't think they ever say her name, and you see Quinn. And the way it unfolds is really smart too, because it unfolds like a horror movie, which was one of the things I love about this movie. It's not just superhero stuff; it is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And then when Blade comes in, like you said, he just clears the room, and it's gorgeous. It's all these really nicely choreographed martial arts, and the effects don't bother me either in this scene. I think that the vampire dusting—that's what I'm going to call it—the vampire dusting works just fine.
Yeah,
and it's comparable to what we saw on TV with Buffy, which I thought also looked good.
Which is the main, it's really the main visual effects.
It is
that you need for this movie and this character. What I thought was cool about that scene too, that I think is so minor, but I think really cool nonetheless, is Blade's escape when the cops arrive.
Yeah.
Like you actually see that. Whereas
that's cool.
In so many movies with a darker, hero, a mysterious hero, more often than not, when the cops arrive, the hero is just magically not there, like he's disappeared and you don't see it. Like, when how often in a Batman movie there's Commissioner Gordon, 1 minute he's talking to Batman, next minute he turns around and Batman's just not there. We don't see him escape. We don't see
The Dark Knight. They're talking in the bank vault. He turns around. Batman's gone. Where'd he go?
He's gone. Yeah. Where'd he go? In that scene, the cops knew he was there, so I guess he could just walk out. But
yeah, he could have.
But again, it's the middle of the day. What the hell is he doing? But with Blade, like you see him sneaking around and sort of just casually,
I like that. You see him crawl out of the sewer basically, or something.
Yeah, and then he blends in with his environment on the street. It's like, all right. So I thought that was something so small but so cool at the same time.
This song is also a huge deal, I think.
Yeah.
That the song they picked for that scene is just goes along with it incredibly well.
Yeah, absolutely. The soundtrack choices were solid in this movie as well. This was still back in the day when we had like actual songs, musical,
musical soundtracks instead of scores.
Yeah.
It does have a score though, but it's not the same.
Yeah, and I don't know that I don't know that the score was like the actual, the composer score was available for purchase back in the day, like they are now, where it's like.
Oh, I don't know.
You can. I don't know for this one. The album was, but not the musical score that I remember. Then of course we get the doctor or I think she was a doctor, right?
Yeah, Karen.
She gets bit, and and then saved by Blade. So we get her introduction as well, and even her kind of like studying. They bring the body in, and she has to go analyze it. And the way he wakes up and just starts attacking, that speaks to your assertion of it also being like there was equal parts horror movie slash superhero movie. Like it was really an equal partnership between the two genres, and that's why it, I think, works so well, because that scene was great. And I remember when I first saw it, probably got a jump scare out of me when I first saw it. And now you're kind of expecting it because you've seen it so many times. But so we get her introduction, and when he saves her, and like he brings her to Whistler, and that's her introduction to Whistler. And you get his character, which is this grizzled, cantankerous old man who's just, but also badass, and
With a heart of gold.
yeah. And like you see that these are like this is like neither of them are like wealthy or like we're not talking about the Tony Starks and the Bruce Waynes of the world. Like look where they're working out of. And you know the lab is the sort of like just scattered all over the place, and so it's very makeshift and grounded. I know that word is overused nowadays, but that's literally the best way I can describe this particular setup.
Given the source material and even just what we see in the movie, it is very grounded for what it is. Yeah. I would say because there's nothing really like overly fantastic about it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It all kind of feels like, oh, okay, this could be a thing, and their lab especially, it just feels like I think they're just in a warehouse they're squatting in. Is what it feels like.
And exactly, that's exactly what it is. And obviously, and you know, like Whistler is like the Alfred to Blade's Batman. Whistler functions kind of like a cross between Alfred and Commissioner Gordon to Blade's Batman. And what's fun, why I bring Batman up is because when Blade's driving in with his car, I'm like, well, I can't help but not, after the fact, obviously, think of Matt Reeves' Batmobile. I think there's not much.
It's pretty close there.
It's like, all right, it's you know, it's all, and I like Matt Reeves' Batmobile just fine. I'm just saying, seeing the two movies, you know, after the fact, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's close. There's
I'd
not
like
much
to
difference.
see them race.
Oh, I'd watch that.
I want to see them race.
Like, you know, what were those YouTube videos, the superhero battles?
Oh yeah, superhero beatdown from
was it Bat in the Sun? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just do the two cars.
That'd be fun.
I'd watch that. You know,
I'd watch that. Yeah. I'd watch Blade and Batman team up. I think that'd be fun.
Has there been, I was going to ask, a side note, but has there ever been a comic where the two have crossed over and teamed up? There should be.
When they did the big Marvel DC thing, I don't think Blade was a part of it.
No, he wasn't, yeah.
But if they ever do like another Red Rain sequel.
That's where he'd be perfect in there.
Let's see Blade.
I'm down.
That'd be fun.
The other gripe I have in terms of crossovers, and then we'll get back to the movie, is I'm still banging the drum, and I know there'd have to be some time travel, alternate universe shenanigans happening, but I still want a Batman Zorro team up kind of deal. Make it happen. So Sean Gordon Murphy's doing a Zorro book. He's got the Batman White Knight. I don't know. Let him do it. Just why not? Like, come on.
That'd be fun.
Just do it. Make me happy. That's one of the things I want. Don't make me turn into that Batista gif and start yelling, "Give me what I want." I will, but but yeah. So I love the Blade Whistler dynamic, and both of these guys. What I like about these characters is we're just getting to meet them, but just in terms of their attitudes, you get the sense that they've been at this for a number of years and they've had enough. Like they're over it. Like it's like they've seen it all. They're tired. They're that world weary kind of sense.
It's just routine to them.
Yeah, but it's like it's been going on for so long, and it's so you get that aspect of them. And when Blade and Whistler kind of warned her about the vampire element, two things. I liked that she was appropriately shocked. That it wasn't, oh my, yeah, it's coming. Sometimes they play it off. Yeah.
And they go over the top.
I expected that, but I think her reaction was appropriate. Like that's how you'd react if you were told that, right? But when Blade and Whistler warn her, like when they take her back to her place and they warn her, be on the lookout because you never know when they'll show up, right? she took that to heart and like instantly became super paranoid, and then right away is confronted by a vampire or a vampire sort
Familiar.
of familiar. Yeah,
But there's also the two in the elevator, which they never explain. I thought that was kind of weird.
that was kind of off because it's like that was the setup, but then it ended up being the cop, right? Which you expect it would be those two, but then it's the cop.
Maybe they were spying to make sure she goes home. I don't know.
Yeah, it
Did
could
they
be.
call
But
him.
they never really explained
Got to
it.
make our own headcanon on this one.
Though I do like the scene where Blade just kicks his ass and
Oh, yeah.
for information. And what it is what makes it so cool is just the casualness with which Blade and Wesley Snipes, the casualness in his movements and the way he does it. It's like there's no. It's just like, oh yeah, it's part of my Tuesday. Just
I love the line when Karen says, "Is all that really necessary?" when he breaks her table.
Yeah.
I always think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking the same thing. Like, is this necessary?
Yeah, like, do you have to go overboard? Like, is there not a more, But and the other thing I think that really worked, I really like in the movie is the setup for Deacon Frost and sort of the vampire, the status quo, and sort of how there's like a war brewing within the vampire community of the pure. What do they call themselves? The pure bloods.
The pure bloods, yeah.
Yeah, and then the kind of Deacon Frost's sort of.
I don't think they gave them a name.
No, but it's like they're not.
They returned. That's all they. That's how they referred to them. But
right,
I don't think
it's not like born and bred vampire. It's they returned and so. But I like that there's like a civil war within the. There's a struggle for power within the vampire community, and not only are several times where Deacon Frost is portrayed as like an asshole that he plays the perfect asshole that you're meant to hate, but the way he takes out, like he seizes control and sort of does away with the main the lead vampire. Or one of the lead vampires to get everybody else to fall in line. That was a pretty cool scene. Like he rips out his tooth, and then makes him burn in the sunlight. That was pretty ruthless. I thought, okay, and then he goes to the meeting and he throws the tooth on the table and he's like, all right, we're taking over. It's our time now and what. But I also like the larger mythology. That they're trying to unearth or resurrect the ultimate sort of vampire deity, if you will. I guess you could call it. Like even all that was fascinating. Like, and again, they give you just enough that it makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point because I've never questioned Lamagra. I just say, yeah, it makes sense. It's cool. I never question it because, like I said, they give you enough. But also, I think that the pace the movie moves, you don't really have time to question it.
Right.
And really, you see enough to where you just accept it too, because we see the big pages of the book of was it Erebus or something?
Yeah.
We see the pages and you just kind of put it together. So when it gets to that ending and you see it, like, oh, okay, yeah, the ritual could be a little hokey, but we're talking about vampires resurrecting some kind of god. It is.
Yeah, at some point you have to let
Yeah, this is one of those movies that
suspension of disbelief. You have to let it go, right?
Yeah, and especially in a grounded film like this, where that's the only thing that gets weird. It's like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I also really like the vampire community, though. I think that's something we don't see a lot in movies with vampires. Generally, they're just nomads hanging out by themselves, or there's 4 of them who just argue or whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
In this case, you have a whole world, a whole network of them that don't get along, and it's fun.
Yeah. And how they talked about how, they've been sort of living amongst us because they have an agreement with
politicians.
Yeah,
That's
the
cool too. We
politician.
haven't seen that before, as far as I
Yeah,
know.
because it's like, yeah, it's very unique. Like even rewatching, I'm like, oh yeah, we still, in all the years that we've gotten, vampire movies, that hasn't been a thing,
No, it's
except
not a concept they really play with a lot.
yeah, yeah. So it's very unique in that sense. Um, and like you said, they need, the ritual's hokey, but they need Blade's blood to unearth this Lamagra, this god, right? And so, um, you know, um, were you shocked at all by the reveal of Blade's mother?
At the time I probably was,
Yeah,
but they don't make it because we see her before the reveal. You remember we see her briefly in that scene with
yeah,
Deacon Frost.
right. No, but when you saw her for the first time, it was like, oh, okay.
Right. But what I mean is, I feel like since I saw her the first time already, I was like, oh, okay, it's just his buddy or whatever. And then when the big reveal happens, it does make it a bigger deal. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, that's his mom, and she's not
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Did you think that she's going to save him at the end or something? She does
yeah,
not.
yeah. She's totally. His mother is totally gone. Like
Yeah,
what's
and there's
left
some
is.
a monster, and there's some weird like sexual tension there with her. I thought that's odd.
Yeah, when she's kind of like she's
A little too close there, mom.
stringing, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know she's not your mom, but she still is your mom,
I
so
mean,
it's
there's some.
still kind of Oedipus bullshit going on. Like you
I don't know.
might want to steer clear. I mean, I know you're technically both vampires, but
I think somebody was reading the Anne Rice Vampire Chronicles and took it the wrong way.
yeah. So that was a little weird. But even Blade says he's like, my he even alludes to the fact that no, that's not his mother. His mother's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Full
And
reveal though.
yeah, it was shocking. And we see, of course, how they lure Blade. There is their attack on Whistler,
Mm-hmm.
and then the last we see of Whistler, and I like how they did that for the simple fact is like you knew he was going to get messed up, but they didn't really go in depth in showing it. You just see the aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of it leaves it to your imagination, and your imagination starts running wild. How bad they messed him up, right? But then Whistler's like just let me die. He wants to end it, right? And so Blade, begrudgingly gives him a gun to so that Whistler can end himself, which he seemingly does, and yet we see him in subsequent films. So
We do.
how does that work? I can't remember if they explained it.
I was trying to remember before, after I watched one, I was like, I don't remember. And then I was saying, well, I'll just watch the second one again.
Yeah, well, we'll review it here like we're doing this one, but so we'll find out when we watch. But I was thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, I know we see him again, so I can't remember if they gave an explanation or not.
They do, but if I remember, and it's been a while, I think that the explanations don't line up because, of course, they switched directors. They went much bigger with the sequel. I mean, the sequel is a whole different beast compared to the first one.
Plus, it's Guillermo del Toro, so that's...
Right. He wanted to do his own thing, which let him.
Right. Yeah. If he comes and says, "I want to do a Blade movie,"
Yes. How much money do you want, sir?
what are you going to say? No to him? Only Universal, or I think it was Universal with the Hellboy movies, said no to him on the third one. They're like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But still. So so they've got him. It seems like the plan is coming to fruition, and basically Deacon Frost is essentially making himself a vampire god at this point. And it's funny because as the ritual's taking place, and as the blood is flowing through the the inner workings of the labyrinth they got set up, it's killing the purebloods, and sort of powering up Deacon Frost, and Blade is rescued by our female lead, our female protagonist, and I like the agency they gave her in this film. Like, she wasn't just the damsel in distress that Blade had to save.
I prefer when it's not a damsel in distress in these movies.
Right. And so I like that they didn't. It just wasn't that. Like, she had agency. She had, her whole thing was trying to find Blade a cure after he had saved her. So, like, she had a purpose, right? And she was using her knowledge as a doctor to kind of try and help him. Whereas, they could have gone the other way and just had her as the damsel in distress / eye candy,
but just save her every 10 minutes.
Especially at that time in the late 90s, that was the thing. Like, Nicole Kidman, I mean, she has some, she's helping, to go back to Batman, she's helping Bruce figure out his nightmares, so she has a little bit of agency, but
not as much. But
at the end, Batman's going to save her,
right?
And in 1997, whoever was the female lead in that, I think it was Ellen Pearson, was bloody useless.
They cut her death scene even. That's how useless she was.
Right. So my point is, at least, here she played a role, not just because she wanted to find a cure for Blade, but she was in the thick of the action. So she saves Blade. And again, the introduction to Blade was great, and then the reintroduction to Blade was great.
Mm-hmm.
It was just as good as his intro, because Deacon Frost had his glasses, so he wanted to get part of the thing was, I gotta get my sunglasses back, and the way he did it was like when him and Deacon Frost are stabbing each other.
He got him from Quinn.
Oh, it was Quinn.
Yeah, Quinn had it. He ran toward him and he pulls the cord.
Yeah. But the way he did it was when they're like, it's a little over dramatic, but it still worked.
It is.
They're kind of sort of the way he catches them and just in mid fight puts them back on, and he's got that he turns and he's got that expression. It's posing for the camera, but it works, and who cares?
It's one of the few superhero moments in the movie. And again, it's like, oh, okay, cool. This is fine.
It reminds you that it's a late '90s superhero movie.
Right. There's little winks at the camera here and there to tell you, hey, this isn't just a horror movie.
Yeah, but again, it's done in a certain moment where it's like, I'm good with it, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
I thought the battle with Deacon Frost was cool. They made him very, in his amped up mode, I guess, or his level up mode, is like the Flash TV show like to overuse at the end there. I thought he was formidable to a degree, but I think my issue with that scene was the build up. In as good as Blade's re-entry is, it's over for Deacon Frost. There's not much. There's not much suspense of he's got a fighting chance here. So that, like, as cool as that re-intro was, it kind of told you that, okay, it's like, to use an old school wrestling terminology, when Hulk Hogan was getting beat on and he starts shaking and doing the Hulk up, you knew the match was over. Like, I mean, there's no mystery as to what's happening next. So it kind of gave the same sense here. And the one of two places where I had an issue with the CGI was when that blood explosion. I thought that was a little rough.
Well, I mean, if
It is 1998, but
you've seen the alternate ending, right? The alternate version of the fight.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So
yes.
It was originally a blood tornado that Blade was going to fight with, and that thing looked ridiculous. So, if this is the lesser of two evils,
yes, I remember.
Yes,
I remember that.
But also, I like the fight. I think it's a cool fight.
It was a cool fight, though. Yeah,
they're like on even ground with the swords. That's cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do kind of wonder. Well, he's the blood god now. What can he do differently?
Yeah.
Did he just inherit the ability to have a sword fight?
I guess.
I don't know, but that's kind of a sticking point with me when it comes to the final
battle. There should have been more. Like there should have been added ability.
Right, like does he fly now? Does he have some kind of insane? Does he turn into something?
Can he turn into a bat? I mean, that would have been cool.
Right, because we saw the spirits of the vampires come out as these bat skeleton things.
Yes, yeah, which was really cool, actually.
It is cool.
Yeah.
But like, instead of having that weird CGI thing when he gets cut in half, which I do love because you get that look from Blade when he mouths the words, that's awesome. But you just kind of figure, well, what is he going to do now? He's the blood god. Nothing. He has red eyes and he can have a sword fight. Good one, but still.
Yeah, it was a great sword fight, but still, it was so weird. The other place where I had an issue with CGI was the train sequence.
Oh, really?
Where I can't remember whose face was
Quinn.
getting. Yeah, it was Quinn.
Quinn gets the rough part of the whole.
Oh, he gets destroyed. Poor guy. But he went on to play Bullock in Gotham, and
he did just fine.
He was fantastic in Gotham. By the way, I just throw props to Gotham for that, because he was great in that. But yeah, it looked a little wonky in spots, but it wasn't. Again, it's 1998, so I'm not going to be overly, hard on the VFX. And then it ends with Blade turning down the cure because he says, there's a war, something to the effect of there's a war coming, and I have to be ready. So he kind of, for now, temporarily refuses the cure.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ends in Russia, where he's tracking down a vampire in Russia.
Such a cool visual with all the snow and stuff. It is very cool.
Blade and vampires in the snow.
I think just movies in the snow work, but
there's something about Batman and Blade at wintertime that works.
I think it's because they both wear all black.
Yeah, good point.
And they're darker characters. Yeah, I think that's my guess. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
And also, Blade's coat, kind of like a cape.
It's
maybe.
A cape. Yeah, it's as close to a cape as you. Yeah.
Right. If they could put Blade in a cape, they would.
Yeah.
But then he's just a vampire, I think.
Yeah.
Even like the deleted version with Morbius, he's also just in a coat.
That would have been cool.
It would have, but I don't know how the sequel would have worked if they did keep that in, because then we would have been wondering, hey, where's Morbius? Or who is Morbius?
I think they probably would have put him in it if they were allowed to keep it.
Maybe.
Then again, does Del Toro want to use more? The question then becomes, would that have been a studio mandate of, hey, listen, do what you want, but make sure Morbius is here?
Yeah, and then at that point, which Morbius do you use? The popular one from the animated series, or do you use the one from the comics who is not as popular?
And then the other thing too is, it was all a moot point because Sony got the rights to the Spider-Man stuff, and then Morbius went with him. So,
and we just got Jared Leto, so it is what it is. It all works out.
Oh well, if you can call that movie work. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't as bad as social media made it out to be. But it could have been a lot better.
It is what it is.
Blade was the blueprint for superhero vampire movies, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
But no. So I think we covered pretty much all points, unless there's something we missed that you want
to. I would just say one of the things that works so well in this movie is the action, and that's partly because Wesley Snipes is a trained martial artist.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that sets this movie apart from other superhero films where these actors don't really know what they're doing. I don't say that in a bad way.
I mean, they have 2 weeks of training.
Right, they have
2 weeks to a month before filming, right?
exactly. As much as I love, like all these other movies, the actors aren't really the ones doing a lot of the fighting.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, that was Wesley Snipes, and it was just a really cool compliment to the movie.
Yeah, and I think it authenticates everything more because, normally where you'd see a shot where you couldn't see his face.
Right. You see
here you could, because it was him. He was capable of doing it.
And it just added so much personality to the movie.
And, yeah.
And lastly, I would just say the MCU's they have a high bar.
Yeah. I think, look, I'm going to just say it. To me, Wesley Snipes, in terms of as Blade, is right up there with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Robert, I almost called him Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. For me, Christopher Reeve is Superman. So it's that kind of a level of casting. He really sort of sold it and made it believable. And the other shout out goes to why am I blanking on his name? The guy who played Deacon Frost. He was great.
Oh, he's perfect. I think that the movie
just
as much as
disdain for superhero movies now, just because it seems like it's cool for actors to knock superhero movies. I don't know why, but whatever. Despite his opinion, he did a good job here.
I think he was just knocking the Blade reboot because he was like, nobody could do it better than us.
Yeah, I'm not in it, so let me crap on
right.
it. It's kind of like Kevin Sorbo knocking any Hercules that doesn't involve him. But who the hell? Who wants to hire him now?
Well, yeah. What's funny about Stephen Dorff though is if they were to include Deacon Frost in the MCU one, he could play the comic accurate Deacon Frost now.
Yeah, because
Deacon Frost is actually an older man in the comics.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So that would be an interesting thing. Hey, you want to do
That'd
it
be hilarious if he changed his tune if they called him and said, "Want to do it?"
Oh, this is better than the first one. It was so much fun.
Yeah, he'd come. Oh, this is great.
Wesley, who?
Yeah. But yeah. So overall, I guess we can go ahead and rate the movie. So, out of letter grade, what would you give it?
This is A+ for me. I love Blade.
Yeah, for me too. It's an A+. I think everything worked. The story was well put together. Gave you everything you needed to know in the right amounts, but was quickly paced. But didn't sacrifice it. Like it wasn't sacrificing quality for pacing. The martial arts work was exemplary. And as a martial artist, I can appreciate that. The musical choices worked. They added to the atmosphere of the film and the attitude of the film. And Wesley Snipes has cemented himself as the character. So yeah, A+ for me as well. But with that, that covers the movie. So we'll take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll talk about Blade #1, the actual 2023 #1, because there's a lot of Blade #1s. But that's the one we'll be covering. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back, and as promised, we're going to be talking Blade #1 that came out just about a month ago, as at the time of this recording. Chris, why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown of who wrote and drew this comic, and just a general sort of description about what it's about?
Yeah, so this is the number one, as you mentioned, and it's the first Blade number one in a while because we've had Blade's daughter going on recently.
Yes. Yeah.
I believe this is separate, but don't quote me on that. But this arc is called Mother of Evil. It's written by Brian Hill, who is a very popular writer. He's written a lot of stuff.
Yes, he has.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's a big part of Titans, the show.
Yeah, he was a head writer, I think, on Titans.
He did some good stuff there.
He also wrote a arc in Detective Comics, and he wrote, I think it was 12 to 20 issues of Batman and the Outsiders.
I thought he also wrote Power Rangers.
No, he wrote the reboot film, not the 2017 one, the one that's in development.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
So then he's the writer. The artist, I might butcher her name. I apologize. Is Elena Casagrande?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, her work is phenomenal, and it's also colored by one of my favorite colorists working today, Jordi Belair. Yes. Any book you see that has beautiful colors is probably from Jordi.
And didn't she also work on the Buffy comic that we discussed?
Yeah.
A bit. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, she's everywhere. And so this book serves as an introduction to the character for those who are not familiar with him, and it sets him on a quest to stop the Mother of Evil, as the arc suggests.
And what I think is it's interesting reading this book right after rewatching the movie, because there are, I think, purposeful similarities. There is visually, Blade resembles how we see him in the movie. I mean, it's not, like Alex Ross level, realistically looking like Wesley Snipes, obviously, because that would cost a crap ton of money if you had to get Wesley Snipes likeness, I'd imagine. But in terms of the general look of Blade, you can like, if you've only watched the movie and you see that on the stands and you flip through it, you're like, oh yeah, all right, I get it. It's the Wesley Snipes character, right?
It's familiar.
Yeah. And there's also it's not a nightclub like a nightclub per se. It's more like a lounge, kind of a singing lounge type.
It's some kind of club bar sort of thing.
Yeah, and you have a vampire attack, or I think was it?
It was vampires.
It was okay, yeah, because he goes, because there's talk of werewolves as well.
This one of the things I like about this issue is it opens up the Blade world to other creatures. It's not just vampires.
Yeah, which is going to be interesting. So there is like a club type scene where there's a similar, Blade comes in, makes the rescue, and but what I like about sort of even that opening that resembles the movie. And anytime there's action, like there's extreme violence, there's this red color palette that goes over the panel,
like a filter or something.
Yeah, exactly, a filter. And I think it works. I think it adds to the violence and to the art, right? It's because you can still see how gory it is, but it's just like that red color filter makes it seem like it's something you can imagine seeing in like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Like Kill Bill.
Yeah, is the best way I could describe it. I thought it was really cool.
It's unique.
Yeah, and so the book kind of backtracks and sort of shows us why Blade is making this rescue, and he's been hired out by somebody in the werewolf community to protect this woman. I think the name given before,
Dana.
Yeah, it's Dana. And he says, look, she's under attack. We don't know who's after her, but did they call her? What they call her? Charm? What this issue was Charmed? Is that the word they used? Is that the word they used?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Because he was like, I'm not sure what he's like. What is she? A vampire? A werewolf? What is she? He's like, I don't know. She's just. All we know is that she's charmed or whatever he said. So Blade is on the. That's why he went to rescue her. Then we catch up in present day, where he takes her to the werewolf's apartment. And says,
His name is Tanaka.
Yeah, Tanaka. That's it. Yeah. Where he takes her to Tanaka's apartment. Says he'll be here shortly. Then they're attacked by a creature who attacked Dana's boyfriend, right? And
which that's always on the flashback. Dana's boyfriend was nailed to the wall.
Yeah,
kind of crucified.
Very gruesome, actually.
Pretty cool.
So Blade sort of wipes him out, and then there's a big swerve where the person that Blade was contracted to find and protect is actually the big villain.
Plot twist.
Assumingly, she's the mother of evil that is in the title of this arc.
I believe so.
And she gives Blade a pretty good stabbing. And like she's very sadistic. Like what I found interesting about that character is she's got, again, this very calm, like once the big reveal happens, it's this very calm, calculating demeanor, but it's sadistic.
There's something about the way the art is drawn to where you can get that vibe from her.
Yeah.
Because I think in a lot of comics, they try to convey emotion and stuff through the art. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. This is one of those cases where it's perfect. There's actually that piece of art where it's a circle. It's in the middle of a panel. It's a circle of the character's face. One side is she doesn't have an expression really. But then the other side of the circle, you see a smile is formed. And that's kind of like the switch.
Yes.
And it's so subtle, and it works throughout the rest of the book because that was the turning point.
Yeah.
And it's conveyed so well that it just fits.
Yeah, that can only really be done. I mean, the writer can put whatever he wants in her, into her mouth.
Right.
It's a dialogue, but
that's an artist thing.
That has to be sold by the artist, and it was done very, very well here, exceptionally well. But the way she tells Blade, she's like, "I like to hear you. I like hearing you scream." That was the sadistic part of it. But then, Blade is captured, and from what we're told, is put in hell.
I think they meant that metaphorically. It looks like just in a torture chamber.
A hellish torture chamber, whatever.
Yeah.
But they said hell. Anyway, but again, even that scene, the way it was drawn, kind of mimicked the movie in the like when he was strung out.
A little bit, yeah.
It had those vibes. But then he's rescued by a woman who is part of the group of people. You remember the guy that Blade killed when he was protecting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't give. I don't think they gave them a name.
They don't have a name, but that same group.
I'm guessing that's coming.
Yeah, that same group. A woman saves him. So she turns on her own people and saves Blade and says, "Are you willing to help me kill?" What was her name?
Adana.
Adana. Yeah. Dana. Yeah, Dana. I think it is. Help me kill Dana and save both the sort of the underworld and the human world, because she's a threat to both, according to everybody involved. And so Blade's like, if you're gonna rescue me, I guess I'm in, right? And the cool thing at the end, which was very Wesley Snipes-ish, was she says to Blade, "You're not what I expected," or something along those lines. And he's like, "You have no idea," or "You ain't seen nothing yet," or something like that. Yeah. And just that vibe, and again, the look on his face which is the artist's responsibility. Um, I was like, yeah, that's a Wesley Snipesism. Yeah.
Well, I think it's part of it because not to say that the art is unoriginal because they take some cues or whatnot, but I think it's important to mention the Blade movie revolutionized the character from that point
Absolutely,
on.
yeah.
It completely inspired the iterations that we got. Because even if you look at the Midnight Suns game, that Blade is also very much like Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the standard now. And
It
I think
absolutely is, yeah.
and with the art in this book, yeah, they took the standard and they ran with it because they did make it their own. Because yeah, he looks like Wesley, but he's not, like you said, he's not a carbon copy. He's got his own ticks and stuff.
Yeah, they have a general. It's a general look, that resembles the same look that Wesley had in terms of the outfit, the facial hair where it needs to be, the hairstyle.
I don't think he got the tattoos.
No, he didn't have at least that we could see.
Yeah, I think the tattoos, that might be the Wesley Snipes thing.
Yeah,
but I'm with you. There's a lot of little touches here that it's familiar, and I like it.
It's familiar but different, and I don't mind them doing that because if you anything that has transcended the medium and has made an imprint has affected the comics. If you go back to, the radio serials are what gave the Superman mythos kryptonite. The Crystalline Fortress is from the Donner movies, right? Before that, that was never a thing. Harley Quinn, came from the animated series, like you mentioned. So there are things that when they influence the character so much in pop culture that they are then added to the comic mythology, or the comic tapestry, or however you want to phrase it. And so that's what this is an incident. It's nothing against the artist for. That's not a detriment of her or Marvel asking her to sort of make it like the movie. That's just a testament to the effect that the movie had.
And also, again, the artist does her own spin on everything, and it looks fantastic, and it creates an atmosphere. Because that's another thing I like about the art. It's very atmospheric.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even for the closed-in shots, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it works.
Yeah, and I really hope they continue with the use of that red filter.
I do too.
When it gets uber violent, I think they should continue that.
And it adds. So Brian Hill did amazing with the dialogue and all that, and the story itself. And I really like the way that the artist and the writer came together on this. Seemingly,
yeah. It seems like a perfect union between the two of them.
Right. This feels like these two get each other.
Yeah.
And it just produced such a really well-made Blade book.
Oh, it was fantastic. And again, the expansion of the mythology to include mystical beings other than vampires, like the idea that werewolves are a thing. It's like, I want to see that, and
that's a part of Blade.
Yeah, who knows what else is out there, but bring it all on. I'm intrigued by all of it.
Marvel generally does horror well, so I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, which I'm hoping the MCU leans, once they introduce Blade, I hope they lean into that more. They kind of did with Moon Knight a little bit, but I hope they go more into that.
Yeah, Werewolf by Night, Moon Knight, they did those too.
Yeah, so hopefully they do some more. Ghost Rider is a thing I'd like to see at some point, but that's neither here nor there. Do a Midnight Suns team up, that'd be cool.
That's what I want.
A dark, be like a darker version of the Avengers kind of thing.
Or maybe this could turn into a Midnight Suns after they're done with their initial run. That'd be fun.
Yeah, introduce. Well, I wouldn't want to sacrifice a solo Blade book, but in addition to, I'd love it. Like maybe set it up in this book, and then kind of like Brian Edward Hill did with Detective Comics. He set up the Outsiders, and then it spun into its own book. But this left me so intrigued. I want to know more about who is Adana or however you pronounce it. Like, what's her deal? What's her? She kind of laid it out, but there's obviously more to her plan that I'm eagerly anticipating. Are we going to get a Whistler? Is Whistler going to show up? Who knows?
That's one thing. I think Whistler's dead. That's the impression I got.
He could be. Yeah, probably. Yeah. Um, but I'm left so intrigued, and I can't wait for more. Like, this is a definite monthly, thing that I'm going to be keeping track of. So, and we can keep doing reviews for as we go along. But I'm sold, and I'm 100% on board. Is there anything else you want to mention before we go ahead and rate it?
I just thought it was awesome the way Dana unzips her face, essentially. Like when she's walking away from the compound.
That was really cool.
Pulls her face off, and it's like a whole new thing under it. That was so cool.
That was really cool. And that's the one time I'm glad they didn't use the red filter. I'm glad I got to see that in full force.
I really love this book, though.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. Really, it's so good. It's, like I said, familiar but breaking new ground at the same time, and that's the best of both worlds.
When you want to reintroduce a character to an audience, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
To me, this goes in the same category as Jed McKay's Moon Knight #1.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I certainly, I would agree with that. All right, so let's rate it. And for comics, we do remember out of 5 for story and 5 for art. So take it away.
You know, I know I'm going to seem like I'm just high on this book, but 5 and 5 for me. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that. When a comic is that good, it deserves to get its props. And I think looking at the story and the way it was constructed and what it wanted to tell us, I think it gave us, there wasn't anything that I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense, or I'm unsure about that choice. I would have done things differently. I really didn't know what to expect going into this Blade book. But after reading the story, I was immensely satisfied, so I'm going to give the story a 5. And for the art, it was beautiful. So it's a 5 as well. I'm in the same boat as you are. It was one of the best books I had read that month. So I hope if that quality continues, we're in for a good time every 30 days. So stay tuned, and Chris and I will try and keep up with it and keep current and bring it to you in a timely fashion. But we'll be definitely back for more Blade in terms of reviewing the movies and the comic. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, that'll bring this episode to a close. If you want to get in touch with Chris or I via social media, you can. Chris, take it away. Tell us where they can find you.
You guys can follow me on Twitter or X, whatever it's called these days, at thatchris70. You can also follow the other podcasts I do at G of the Geeks with my buddy Emmett Davis, and I also have a DC one with my buddies Phil Walsh and DeCrusoe at DC Unlimited Pod.
Awesome. Both shows are good. So I definitely recommend anybody that's watching or listening to this, if you haven't listened to either of those yet, give them a go. I think you'll enjoy yourself. If you want to find me on social media, it's at Adam_Leafsfan on Degeneration X or whatever Twitter's called nowadays. We have a Facebook group. I'll link it in the description below. Click the link, I'll add you. We can continue the conversation there. But until next time, remember that Blade is forever. From the first time he slices through a vampire to the last. So long, everybody.